Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the July Town Commission meeting. I know it's a little hot in here, our air conditioner's broken. It is part of the budget, so you're gonna have to raise your taxes to pay for it.
But we can't pay for it until after October 1.
Tracy, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Vice Mayor Bonfiglio.
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Magruder.
Here.
Mayor Pugh.
Here.
And please let the record show that Commissioner Askoff is absent with notice.
All right. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. All right, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
The current agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Not the approval, consent agenda, the regular agenda.
We need to make a motion to add an agenda item, which will be the discussion of the town manager's renewal of contract.
All right, let's do that at number 17.
Yep.
All right, you want to make that motion? Or was that your motion?
I just made it.
All right, is there a second? Second. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, keep going. Is there any other additions, deletions, modifications? If there are none, someone make a motion, please.
I move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, public comment on any items other than that are in the agenda as it stands.
Hello, Christine DeHassett, Sable Island Drive. I am here talking for the residents of Sable Island. So Tracy, can you put this up?
Oh, watch that.
And I'll have this. What you have is what you can see behind you, and I'm sorry I didn't have extra copies for the commissioners and mayor, is just Google Maps of Sable Island. And what is highlighted with the 4 arrows, actually the 5 arrows, is where we have street lighting on the island. And there used to be, I believe, a pole where you see the circular piece right when you come on. There used to be a pole with a light there, and somehow through all of AT&T's magical work and changing poles and stuff, it disappeared. Most of the residents don't want a big light there anyways, but as you do enter the island, particularly when it's after dark, it's kind of dangerous, especially at that kind of V where you can go to either the right or the left because there's no lighting. So that little triangle that is circled, and Tracy, if you want to put up that other piece, can you turn it the other way?
Yep.
Oh.
Common.
You can kind of see, I believe that is maintained by the town. I believe that is town property. It's got some lovely vegetation on it, and we were just wondering if there would be an opportunity to add some ground lighting, kind of uplighting, just kind of a nice, so you can either see to go to the left or to the right. Our island is full of a lot of people who walk a lot of dogs, and it's just, it's one of those things that it's, you know, I don't want it to be a safety issue, and we definitely don't want to correct something that's a mishap. So just a thought for your penny sales tax. That's it.
Thank you. Do you want to look into that and look and see if there's power there already?
Absolutely,
And then-
and we have a conversation with our contract landscapers to looking to improve some of the ground material there as well, so it's being physically looked at as we speak.
All right, great. All right, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to bring up Spanish Creek? Because I don't see it on here.
I'm
The
sorry,
lawsuit that's going on with Spanish Creek.
Name and address.
your name and just for the record,
The
I'm sorry.
Culver Bill, Spanish River Drive.
Okay. And what was your question? I'm sorry. I didn't-
Are you going to bring up the lawsuit about Spanish Creek? Because I don't see it here.
No, we didn't have that on the
That's why we're
agenda.
all here.
I don't believe that was even, was that contemplated to be on the agenda today?
That's what we
No,
said. We're
but
going
But we can,
to
if you'd like, we can have the,
because we are all here.
Well, our town attorney can discuss what he knows at this point
Okay, that would be fine.
during his report. Anyone else? Yes, sir. That's what this lady just asked right now. So, do you want to talk about it? Well, come on up. That way you don't have to sit through the whole meeting.
I'm Pat Ganley from Wellington Arms, 6530 North Ocean Boulevard. At the hearing about 2 weeks ago, we lost a partial summary judgment. It's only a draft, it's not a final, but that loss essentially makes the Spanish Creek go away. The waterways we know it was not listed in the official survey of 1 mile plots that was dated back to, I think it's 1870 or 1872. That's what the court references for the official survey. It's a 1 mile plot. And, you know, it's not, it's unbelievable that they were able to decide that that creek was not there, when in fact the Lake Worth was feeding that creek well before the acquisition from the Spanish. We had an expert surveyor. We had also a historian prove the location of that, and it was alive and well. But the judge didn't see it that way. It's up to you guys to make sure that thing is shown in the next hearing.
You have a comment on that, Brian?
No, I have reached out to your attorney because I did hear that there was some order or something issued in that lawsuit that the town is not a part of. And
Well, it's still a draft.
What's that?
It's still only a draft.
Okay, and I have not heard back from your attorney yet, and so because I was trying to get some information on that. Now, as far as the town's case goes, and I was going to bring this up under my comments, but I know that we do have a mediation coming up in the near future that I'll be attending, also Commissioner Bonfiglio as well. And I thought we had talked about this one time before, but where we talked about with the commission to have him as a representative of the commission to also attend. Anything that is discussed or decided there, we would have to come back to you for approval on if there's any settlement or anything like that.
Wellington
But-
Arms is named in that as well. I'll be there.
Exactly,
I'll be there as
yes.
well.
You all are a party to that also. But until I really kind of hear from Julia Jennison as
Yep.
far as, okay, well, what exactly, what was it and how did that play out, I can't really comment on that because we aren't a party to that and I'm not aware of the pleadings in that case.
Well, if this goes the way that the judge has ordered, the lagoon can be filled in. It'll be considered, it's not state-owned sovereign submerged land. It was man-made according to his finding. That's simply not the case.
And without really commenting on pending litigation, I don't think I'll be saying anything more on this. So,
Understood. And
yes.
I
Yeah.
don't mean to, yeah. But we lost, and it's devastating to the town, to the county. We need your help,
Okay,
so fight it, please.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any other public comment? Watch that.
Hello, I'm Clara Caldwell, and I'm at 48 Spanish River Drive. And I would like to address the issue of the retention of an engineering study for Spanish River, Bimini Cove, and that area. We have been living, we've been living at 48 Spanish River Drive now since 2005, and we purchased the property in 2002. And since that time, I have repeatedly called the town to bring to their attention that we literally cannot get out of our driveway. The water sometimes it is knee-deep, so that we have no way of entering or egressing when there are those waterfalls that we've been getting, there's no way that we can get out of the driveway. Even with a car, we can't get out because our driveway's on a slope, and so the water would just go in through the exhaust. It is a very, very dangerous situation because obviously we can't get in or out. And if the power lines were to fall, again, and if there's a fire, you know, it is really a very hazardous situation that is existing there. Furthermore, this water is really excessive on Bimini Cove. People can't walk, they can't walk their dogs. My neighbor can't walk out of his house. We have no roundabout way to egress from our property. On Spanish River Drive, oftentimes the water comes up this high, and it wasn't this way before, but there was something that was done, and I don't know what was done, but the water now, when it rains, it is excessive, and you can't drive through it, you can't walk through it. It is a very, very excessive and highly objectionable situation, not to say hazardous. We would really like to have something done to correct it, because we do have a right to enjoy our property. We also own a lot on 44 Bimini. It's affecting that lot. It's an empty lot right now. But it isn't just a matter of property values, it's a matter of it being exceedingly dangerous. Now, we don't want to make the news because something hazardous or something terrible happened in Ocean Ridge because we didn't address this issue. I'm not an engineer. I don't know what's wrong. I can tell you we have pictures dating way back. At one time, I'm Italian. I'm Sicilian. At one time, I even said I was going to call all of the news publications and have them come down and take a picture. Of course, I didn't mean it, but I was just very, very upset because we couldn't get in and out. My neighbors are equally upset. We've done everything we possibly can, and we want to cooperate with anything that you can do. But simply telling us that it is high tide doesn't cut it, because it isn't high tide. There's something definitely wrong, and I think that maybe Herb might be able to enlighten us a little bit more on it, or somebody else, but I please beseech you to really look into it, because lives are at stake here. My brother came to stay with us one day, and it rained very, very heavily. He had to end up spending the night because the water was so high. I'm sorry, I have allergies. I'm not on the verge of crying. But the water was so high, he couldn't get out. He had to wait until the following day because the water was so high he couldn't back out. So I really, really ask of you to kindly look into this, because something bad's going to happen, and that's going to happen soon, and it's not a good thing.
Okay, yeah, we have it coming up on an agenda item on number 12, I believe. So we'll be discussing that more later on in the meeting.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, hearing none, let's move on to announcements and proclamations. Oh, I'm sorry, the approval and consent agenda. Can we make a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, now announcements and proclamations. The fiscal year 18 budget meeting schedule is as follows. The budget workshop, August 15th at 4 o'clock p.m. And then we have another budget workshop, August 22nd at 4 p.m. The first public hearing and adoption of the tentative budget, September 11th at 6 p.m. And then the final public hearing and adoption of the final budget will be September 21st at 6 p.m. All right, now we're moving on to the town commissioner comments. We'll start out with Commissioner Kaz, limiting hours of commercial maintenance and lawn service on Saturdays.
Thank you, Mayor. This is pretty simple, and I've actually been overwhelmed by the amount of emails and communications I've got from residents that are in favor of this. It's very simple. I don't know how many of you are attempt to go out into your yard, go into your swimming pools, enjoy yourself on a Saturday afternoon, and you got the commercial lawn service coming into the area and spending their entire Saturday afternoon with the leaf blowers, the lawn mowers, the tree trimmers, et cetera, et cetera. This was a small problem in Ocean Ridge until Palm Beach banned the commercial lawn crews from being there on Saturday. So what they did is they readjusted their schedules and started coming into Ocean Ridge on Saturdays instead of during the week, instead of splitting Saturdays with Palm Beach. So it's really a pretty simple ordinance. It says that the lawn service, or let's call them yard service for a broader term, can come into Ocean Ridge from 8 a.m. Saturday morning, but they must leave Ocean Ridge by 1. It doesn't mean that they can finish cutting down the tree at 1 and then load it into their truck. They're in their truck and headed out of town by 1 o'clock. The idea is that you can then enjoy your barbecue, your pool, your backyard with relative peace. It does not affect homeowners. If your neighbor chooses to have his leaf blower going for 2 hours, I suggest you crawl across the fence and talk to him personally about it. But the homeowners can do whatever they want as far as their gardening and their yard trimming on Saturdays. Commercial has to stop at 1. It's pretty simple.
Okay, well, you can make a motion to have the, or actually, make a motion to have the town attorney adopt the ordinance to that effect, and
So I make a motion to have the town attorney adopt an ordinance that commercial yard service will end in Ocean Ridge by 1 p.m.
and began by,
and
No earlier than
traditionally
8.
no earlier than 8 a.m.
Okay.
all right, that's your motion?
Yeah.
Second?
I'll second that. You need a minute to not adopt, but draft.
The what?
You don't want the town attorney to adopt the ordinance, you want him to draft the ordinance.
You're
Yeah.
just giving me direction to
direction,
draft
draft
it,
an
yes.
ordinance, that's
No.
right. Did I say adopt?
He said adopt.
Oh,
yeah.
he said adopt, all right. So there's a motion, there's a motion and a second, is there any more discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next, Commissioner comments. We're going to be looking at regulation of nuisance issues in relation to rental properties and group living facilities by Vice Mayor Bonfiglio.
Okay, I'm sure you all have been watching the Florida legislature's actions with respect to group living facilities and controls with respect to those, and some of the local communities, Boca Raton, I think Delray and Boynton are all looking at adopting ordinances with respect to controlling group living facilities in their communities. So I'm suggesting that we give guidance to the town attorney to look at one of those 3 communities and draft an ordinance for Ocean Ridge so that we can join in with these other communities and have a little bit more control of these group living facilities.
Brian, you look like you're thinking of their.
Well, no, and I guess I just want to make sure, I mean, when we say group living facility, you're talking about, it runs the whole gamut.
The
This
whole
this
gamut.
is, we aren't, this covers every facility that has, right now, your definition of family is 5. You want to
I want to look at,
address
addressing whether we
Right.
need to reduce that from 5
to
to
3 or
3
something? Okay,
unrelated people living in the same, residence,
right.
and look at the whole thing. Sober home issues, address that issue.
Well, I mean,
Um,
that'll be addressed in the overall
Right.
umbrella of, because we're treating everyone the same, so that would be
Yes.
addressed in the complete, I guess, look at your kind of rentals of, of dwelling units here.
Correct, and
in the town.
I think Boca and Delray and Boynton all have drafted proposed ordinance. I want you to take a look at those and take out the stuff that doesn't apply to Ocean Ridge, and kind of tailor it to what does apply in Ocean Ridge, and then maybe come back at probably not the next meeting, the second meeting, which would be July to August, maybe September meeting, and give us a draft ordinance to look at by then for first reading.
Yeah, what I may do is, maybe at your next meeting or prior to your next meeting, I may distribute a rough draft or something to seek input from you all at that point in time to kind of make sure that I'm going down or taking the direction that you all are looking at as well, so,
So I guess
So-
we're just asking you to start the process.
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
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 Is there a
very good.
consensus on that?
I second that.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All you need is consensus, you don't need.
That,
us to-
don't need a
that's fine,
motion, yeah.
I'll start on that, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the reports. Jamie?
Thank you, Mayor. My town manager report is in your backup. Briefly, I fulfilled the CPE requirements for finance director position just 2 weeks ago at the FOA conference. We have virtually completed phase 1 on the paving project, under contract with M&M All County Paving. Earlier this evening, as you're well aware, we set the maximum millage for the proposed FY18 budget, and you'll hear from auditors tonight on the FY16 audit. And that's all I have to report for you this evening.
Thank you, Jamie. Any questions for Jamie? All right, hearing none, let's move on to Town Attorney.
The only thing, just what I'd reiterated earlier, is that there is a mediation coming up in the Swaim lawsuit involving the town and some other parties. And once again, I will be attending, and also, just to make you aware of it, that and once again, I think we had discussed this before, Commissioner Bonfiglio will also be attending that mediation as well. And then we can kind of see where that goes, and after that, I'm sure that, if we come back, if we need a shade meeting or anything like that, we can hold one then, but we will, kind of see what they have to offer.
Well, can you bring us up to speed on what has happened now, so that you can...
Well, as far as the Wellington Arms lawsuit, I'm not aware of where that is. Where we are in the lawsuit involving the town and Spanish Creek, the Spanish Creek entity in Wellington Arms, is basically there's been a little bit of discovery done, but summary judgment motions have not, to my knowledge, have not been filed yet. And there was discussion to say, let's have a mediation at this point in time, just to see where everyone is at, and to kind of go from there as far as what they may be looking at. Once again, the remedy that they are seeking from the town is the granting of an easement over the property in order for them to access the property along Spanish Creek. And once again, it's my understanding from speaking with other people is that even if an easement was granted or ordered to be granted by the court, that is still a long way from them actually obtaining or building an easement and being able to, to haul anything over that easement. Because they would still have to get permitting and things like that from, I think, entities such as South Florida Water Management District. So that would be, the way I'm looking at it, we're still quite a ways away from anything actually occurring, but I really don't want to say a whole lot because this is pending litigation.
Can I ask you one question, which I don't know whether you'll be able to answer, which will help out the people from Wellington Arms? This mediation is specific to the town and the property.
Well, it's specific to that lawsuit, which Wellington Arms is part of, the town is part of, and Spanish Creek LLC is part of.
But the mediation?
Yes, the mediation involves all the parties, and they will have representatives there at that mediation,
So that might.
along with their attorneys. Yes.
Are there any, you have any questions while we're on this subject?
Yeah, what's involved in...
You have to come up here, state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Bob Mitchum, and I live on Spanish River Drive. And I was wondering what the mediation involves. Mediation to me means you meet with a mediator, you're going to come to some kind of conclusion about it. Is that what this meeting is about?
Well-
Or is it just more of a discovery kind of thing?
No, it's not a discovery. I mean, mediation is you meet with a mediator and see if a case can be resolved. Now, I can tell you over the years, I've had more mediations in where it has not been resolved than it has been resolved. So there is no requirement that it has to be resolved or anything of that nature. However, before the mediation, because of the remedy that they are seeking from the town, the granting of an easement, that would need to come in front of you all for your approval on that lawsuit on whether, if the town did decide to grant an easement versus having a court rule one way or the other on that, because that's the remedy that they are seeking, so.
Bob?
Bob Sloat, North Ocean Boulevard. I've been hearing for quite a while that we need to wait and wait and wait, and you can't discuss any litigation. I think it's time that the town got from the commission a commitment that you will take a proactive approach to protect the rights and the property of the citizens of Ocean Ridge.
I believe that Bob, the answer to that, we believe that we do. And then
I think you need to make that commitment to everybody.
well, we do that just by when we talk it over with the town attorney, because there's certain things you cannot say while there is an active case. Otherwise, it could completely perjure the whole town commission, then we'd be nowhere. So I assure you that we do have meetings with the town attorney on a weekly basis regarding all the things he comes up with, regarding any lawsuit that's with the town. Any other questions on this? Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to come up and do the whole routine again. Sorry.
Pat Ganley, Wellington Arms. We did go through the court-ordered mediation process, and it was an 8-hour grueling thing. We got nowhere. There was no reasoning with this. We're going to do it again, but we were not successful.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on to, thank you, Brian. Chief?
The monthly report for May is attached to your agenda item. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Coming up on the agenda later is a request for confirmation of a new hire and some other issues, and I'll defer any other comments until then unless you have questions.
Boy, I could barely hear a word you said.
Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Anybody have any questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief. All right, moving on to our action items. Fiscal year 16 annual audit presentation. And tonight it's Mr. Morton, right? Come on up. We missed Mr. Bennett. He's been here for the last, I don't know, what, 13 years or something? 15 years?
He's enjoying the heat in Orlando right now.
Oh, is that what he is?
Yeah. So I just wanted to thank you to invite us here to go over the audit with you. I'm Terry Morton. I'm a partner with Nolan Holton Minor. And I'll just kind of hit the highlights on the audit and then open it up to any questions, because it is a fairly good audit, something you can be proud of. And on the first 3 pages, our audit opinion, as in prior years, it's a clean or an unmodified opinion, which means the statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards. And after that's the management discussion and analysis, and that's 7 or 8 pages of the whole report kind of written in plain English with some 2-year comparatives, and that's really a good thing you can look at without the accounting terminology. And Ron had done a 5-year comparison going back, looking at all the revenues, expenses, and things like that, and really there's nothing out in that really jumps out at me that we need to go over. Everything is really fairly comparable to the prior years. And as far as our other reports, we do a report on your internal control system. We look at it. We also do a report on compliance with laws and regulations. And as in prior years, there were no significant findings there. And then the Auditor General also requires us to do a fairly comprehensive management letter that's much more substantial than normal professional standards. And we did have 3 comments there this year. And the first one was just that 2 of the departments were over budget. And one of them was the building department, and that was primarily due to you had increased building permit fees in the year. And when you have increased fees, you've got increased inspections, and the budget wasn't amended during the year. And then the environmental department was also a little bit over budget, and that again was part of that was engineering fees due to the increased inspections, and there were some extra surveys and stuff like that done in the year. And really they weren't that far over budget, but that's one of those items that if we don't put it in the auditor management letter, we'll get a letter from the Auditor General telling us to put it in there even though we don't think it's significant. He does think it's significant, so that has to be in there. And the second comment was just a fairly minor comment on some of the internal control procedures. Is every year we do a random sample of expenditures and we test them for compliance with the policies and procedures. And this year there were 4 or 5 of them where all the documentation wasn't on them for some of the reoccurring expenses, like some of your recurring bills and stuff like that.
I missed what you said. It wasn't
there.
Not all the approval process was documented on them for some of the ones we looked at. And then the third comment was on the accounting package that the town's using. And this one is probably the more serious of the 3 just because it's an old system, and just the fact that it's an old system makes it harder to keep current on the things. This year one of the problems was due to a power outage. The system crashed, and that was one reason the audit was delayed this year, was just cleaning up the records after that. And then other than that, it was really a clean audit, and I think you should be proud of both the financial results and the overall compliance with all your items.
Questions for Mr. Morton? Excuse me, wait a second. What's that?
You want to know what the accounting package is, and
It's Tyler Technologies Fund Balance Accounting Program. Tyler Technologies, yes.
Any questions for Mr. Morton?
Yes, I have one. It says, I think on page 68, prior audit findings, there were no findings or recommendations in the prior year that required corrective action. I'm just curious how the Tyler Tech escaped review, and if it did, I didn't have the opportunity to see the 2015 audit, but it says here that there wasn't any problems yet. In March of this year, we had a major problem with that. That's now come to your attention, and with recommendation that we replace it, which we are pretty much on top of at this point. So my question is that something that Nolan Holt goes through as far as the software programs and looks to see their currency and what the latest updates are, and are there any problems with or potential problems with that software?
we do it. We didn't really have any significant problems in the prior year, and then this year, for whatever reason, there was a problem, and then it got magnified due to the age of the software.
But it wasn't noted in your prior survey that we had a potential for a
No.
problem with that Tyler software?
As before, there weren't really any minor problems, and so there was nothing really to grow to a bigger problem in the prior years. Everything was running smoothly, and then when you had that power outage, and then what a relatively small program, just a power outage, kind of got magnified due to the software.
It was just my understanding that that program was pretty much out of date a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, and probably should have been focused for replacement or upgrade.
Did Mr. Bennett bring you up to speed on what happened in March of last year and the problems that it caused the town?
Not in great detail, no.
Okay. The reason I asked that is because I didn't really see any section in here that said, here's what happened in March. It wasn't caught for several months. Here's why it wasn't caught. Here's what you need to do to address that problem. I really didn't see that issue addressed anyplace in the audit. So I was wondering if you knew why the auditor did not address that issue.
I would have to get with
I'd have to
Ron.
ask that
Yeah.
to Mr. Bennett?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Morton? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to number 10.
Mayor, Mayor,
Yes.
you need a motion and a second to adopt the
Yep.
audit report.
Hence an action item. Okay, is there a motion to accept the fiscal year 16 annual audit presentation, or audit, rather?
I move that we accept the audit presentation for fiscal year 2016 to 2017.
And a second by Commissioner Kaz. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Tracy. All right, confirm the hiring of dispatcher clerk Catherine Anatra. Am I saying that right?
You are.
Chief?
Respectfully request that Ms. Sinatra be confirmed for hire as our newest dispatch clerk employee. She has successfully, as of this morning, completed her full background. We were just waiting for the results from doctors and drug screens and credit checks and all of those good things that we rely on others for. We would propose that she be hired effective July 17th, 2017. I did send a resume as requested in prior hires to you a couple weeks ago for your review. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. If not, Ms. Sinatra is here to answer any questions you may have of her.
Where is she?
Nice to meet you. Well, will somebody like to make a motion first?
I'm going with the chief's recommendation. Or just make a motion to hire?
Okay. Is there a second? Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Welcome to the town of Ocean Ridge.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. All right, moving on to number 11, adopt job descriptions for the town clerk treasurer, deputy town clerk, deputy treasurer, building clerk, and administrative assistant. Tracy?
You have the updated job descriptions in your package, and those descriptions were updated based on recent configurations that have gone on in the front office. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
So are these descriptions or the job descriptions we have here, is this like a general job description? It's basically statewide regarding all treasurers and clerks and deputies, and or is this, or do we
Yes,
have
and
something in here that's more specific to a small town?
Yes, and it's also tailored to what we have here. But you want to base these job descriptions on if we have an opening, this is the job description that you want to advertise. So you want to make it so that everything is in there.
All right, and we're doing this because we did not have a clear job description
Correct.
before?
There's a request from the commission to update them based on reassignments and configurations.
Great.
I spent considerable amount of time with the town staff going through these and trying to take out any duplicity between the different areas or
Excuse
different job descriptions.
Could you talk to the microphone, Don?
Oh, I'm sorry.
People in the back.
I don't know if you can hear it. I spent some time with the town staff going through these reviews, and we made some clarifications between the different job descriptions, and I think overall they're in pretty good shape. And so I would make a motion that we adopt the job descriptions as presented.
Can I ask a question before we?
Before we go into discussion after,
Yeah.
let me get a second.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion and second, discussion.
What in the responsibilities and duties of the town clerk, because we went through this once before, and we all marked up and had questions for it. What is different on this sheet of paper in front of me than your previous responsibilities?
I think what happened when Ms. Hansack was here, she had the job description of town clerk and treasurer, as is noted in your town charter and your ordinances. And then when she left, the commission for some reason took out the duties of treasurer. I'm not sure why they did that, maybe because the town manager was finance director, but still you need the job description of treasurer in there, which is different than the finance director. So we really need to put that back in.
So you,
Yes.
that was what I was getting at.
Yes,
Because that moved
unless
over to
you-
Jamie, and now you're
right.
moving it back to you.
Unless you wanted to update your charter
There are
and
two
your
different
ordinances,
duties.
but that would be up to the commission.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I would note that they included in here the building clerk, which is Letha at this point. This is not
Right.
the proposed building official. And we've got in the administrative assistant, which is the new hire.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tracy. All right, moving on to number 12, authorize an engineering study not to exceed $20,000 regarding drainage on Bimini Cove, Spanish River Drive, and to evaluate the state of the system and costs for improvements. Don?
Okay, if everyone doesn't mind, I'll just read the memo that I have, and there's also a supporting document from Jamie that follows it. But basically, the detention pond that's on Woolbright and Mid Lane handled the Memorial Weekend in June 6th and 7th, 13th, and 13th tropical rainstorms as expected, holding water at high tide and draining at low tide, but without filtering out the contaminants. It remains to be seen if the filtration system works as planned after 78 hours of no rain, which I will note before the last weekend's rainstorm, it was not filtering out. It was holding water and it had algae on it. The detention pond handles drainage for Ocean Ridge properties south of Adams Road to Tropical Drive and west to Crown Colony and Yacht Harbor Estates. Still flooding occurred at Dolphin Bend Road and Capri Condominium West parking lot. Properties west of Mid Lane Road are not connected to the detention pond, and this resulted in flooding on Mid Lane Road and Hibiscus Street in front of Commissioner Asco's home. Except for Coconut Lane, all of the properties in Ocean Ridge depend on catch basins that drain directly into the intercoastal during low tide. During the tropical storms of late May and early June, most drainage systems work with only minor temporary flooding. A1A continues to flood at East Anna Street, which is a Florida Department of Transportation problem. Spanish River Drive and Bimini Cove Drive drains overflowed and stormwater flooded the cul-de-sac at the end of Spanish River Drive and Bimini Cove by 2 to 3 feet or more at high tide. Sometime in 2000-2001, Spanish River Drive and Bimini Cove Drive were reconstructed with elevated roads and swale system to manage the stormwater. However, the storm drains and outflow piping to the intercoastal were not part of this project and remain as designed and built when the island was first developed in 1965. This past tropical storm, along with measurable sea level rise, is a wake-up call to renew our efforts in funding to fix flooding and storm drain problems throughout Ocean Ridge. A major hurricane will easily put water levels at 4 feet or more into A1A, Spanish River, Bimini Cove, and properties west of the detention pond. Delray Beach and other seaside communities are currently planning long-term and immediate actions to adapt to these changes, or to adapt to these changes, and I think we should too. I'm requesting the Commission consider the following two proposals. The current 1/2 penny sale tax, estimated at $89,000 this year, should be used to begin a new independent storm drain study for the listed areas above. The 2018 capital budget should be funded for ongoing town drainage maintenance and repair where needed in much of the same manner as a road repaving project. The 1/2 penny sales tax could be used to partially fund this need. It must be noted that significant drainage problems currently exist, and I believe that they will probably require more funding, possibly if available state or federal grants. So, and then Jamie has indicated, has a memo also that he may want to cover.
Just at a scope of service prescription from our town engineers, if they were to do such a study, what that study would include is on the next page of your agenda item. It talks about the Inlet K drainage improvements. The study that I believe Commissioner Magruder is requesting is to study the Inlet K Island system in its entirety, Bimini Cove, Spanish River, and all the systems that currently reside in that footprint.
All right, well, let's read the memo into the record here because it does say a lot. This memo is by our town engineer, Lisa Tropepi from the Ingenuity Group, and it says, over the years, the natural grade of the Bimini Cove Spanish River Island has been dropping. Subsurface investigations and high water tables conclude that underground stormwater solutions are not feasible and that subsurface materials show no indication of ceasing to sink. In addition, isolated springs have been observed throughout the island, further exacerbating the nuisance of standing water. Many improvements such as raising the roads, adding valves, replacing catch basins, repairing pipes, adding curbs, swales have been constructed over the years. This has helped somewhat, but has not satisfied many of the homeowners in the area. In May 2000, town's flood control study addressed these issues with some solutions. If the Commission wishes to investigate more complex ideas for flood control enhancing options, the following scope of work can be performed. Number one, provide topography of the roads and compare the data to previous data. Number two, evaluate existing piping and structures and easements. Number three, investigate the viability of permanent pumping station facilities. Number four, investigate the viability of replacing, upgrading the existing infrastructure. And number five, evaluate the potential of reconstructing the roadways. These services can be provided for a lump sum of $20,000. Please let me know if you have any further comments or questions. Okay. So you're suggesting, you're requesting that the half penny sales tax estimated at $89,000 this year should be used to begin a new independent storm drain study for the areas listed above, but we're not gonna be getting that until December.
Right,
So
well,
do you,
she's proposing that it would only read $20,000, so I'm fine with that, if that will get us going on the study.
okay, and the next one was a 2018 capital project budget should be funded ongoing town maintenance, maintenance and repair. Now, that should already be in our budget, maintenance and repair should already be in there.
We do, we budget for maintenance and repair of storm systems on an ongoing basis, Mayor.
Yeah, we do, 'cause
To
we,
what degree?
Well, it's under several line items, but several $1,000s a year are spent vacuuming, probing, and cameraing the existing lines. As the engineer has indicated, some of the subterranean pieces of our system are traditional in design and have not been changed out, so we maintain them to the degree that they can be maintained. A lot of the improvements, in particular on Bimini Cove and Spanish River, the town, over the years, as the engineer has indicated, has spent several $100,000 in creating improvements on the top side, on the streetscape of those systems. I believe we use the budget line item under public service, under public works of about $30,000. I think it's 33. I have to look back at 33 for stormwater and road-based improvements to these systems. And then we also budget additional items under environmental line items. Last year, actually in this current fiscal year, we expended upwards of the $19,000 directed by this commission for enhancements to the Woolbright detention area, but that was focused specifically to that project.
all right, so, Don, what you're proposing is that we, actually have the study done on the Spanish River, Bimini Cove area
Now,
at the 20, and budget the 20,000, or take the 20,000 out of contingency, or is one of the other areas right out of the budget now?
we need to be aware that there exists problems throughout the town, most of which can be addressed by the detention pond that's at Woolbright and A1A, which we only budgeted out of that $54,000, 19,000 of it went to the plantings in there. They still have not gone out and surveyed the underground piping that would allow it to drain out like it should. South Florida Water Management now says that water coming into that area, detention pond, should be detained, filtered out before it goes into the intercoastal. That is not happening right now. On major storms, the water flows in and flows right out of the drain, just like it does on Spanish River and Bimini. And to exasperate the situation that they have on Bimini Cove, they've got the underground springs. And I cannot begin to tell you what it's going to take to fix that, if anything can be done. And if it can't, I think the citizens in that area need to be told, we've done everything we can do, and we can't do any more.
Did you read this first sentence of the engineer's report? I mean, I think it kind of answers your question. It says, and that subsurface materials show no indication of ceasing to sink. So we can dump hundreds of thousands of dollars in there to try to stabilize it. And it's,
Well, you can't stabilize the
Right.
fact that
So-
the island, the way it was filled, was not done properly, but there are other methods available that can handle that spring water
I
in a
totally,
different manner.
totally agree with that. And has the town, like, taken, pumps up there? I know on Adams Street and Tropical, 5-10 years ago, when this occurred, the pumps used to be brought out, and so you could get out of your driveway. Those pump work fantastic.
Well, the thing is, if you want to do the study, I mean, I think that Lisa basically gave you a ballpark here. So if anything, we should ask her to actually give us a detailed report of actually what she's going to give us to do, because there's different things you can do there. You can put pumps underground and pumping out there. I know there's a pipe between Herb's house and your next door neighbor. It's only about 6 inches in diameter. It's broken all over the place. So we also filled in Eleuthera. We built the road up in Eleuthera a couple of years ago. That was
I think the Luther
400.
is working.
It's working great. It was
Pretty good.
It's 400-some thousand dollars. So, I mean, we do infrastructure repairs. It's just getting. But you got to come up here, Herbert, if you want to.
This is something I'm very familiar with because I've been dealing with it for about 6-7 years now.
Name and address for the record.
And I've dealt with 3 town managers. Jamie has been very, very helpful. Commissioner Magruder has been more than helpful. We have been suffering, as Clara Caldwell mentioned, without having egress or access back and forth out of our homes. Okay, that's 6 hours a day. Okay, when the tide comes in and doesn't go out until 6 hours later, our driveways are full. The town engineer designed Bimini Cove pitching, okay, with curbing to try to dam the water coming from the springs or wherever it's coming from in the dry lots, okay, wherever it's coming from, probably from springs. The Spanish River used to run through there somewhere. And all those lawns are now swamp areas. Not only are they swamp areas, but all the leaching fields are in front of the houses. All right? So that water that's sitting in those lawns is now absorbing leach water, which is now draining out 24/7 into the curbs, into the gutter, if it can get through the dams. And so if you come and look at the driveways, they're brown, okay, on that side of the street, those 2 houses. I've seen water coming out under the steps leading into both houses. I've seen water coming out of the driveways, okay. Now, that is not going to be accomplished. There's no way that is something that, as Commissioner Magruder had mentioned, was in the design of the island. And those springs cannot be contained. I mean, bottle the water, put pump stations in there, and start a bottling system. But the answer is no attempt was made. Yeah, a sleeve was put in many years ago in the storm drain between Mark Fain's house and my house. And it was put in properly. I was out there when the second one was attempted to be put in during the construction of the Bimini pitch, changing the pitch. And that one never was able to be accessed, to be installed. They got part way in and it wouldn't go any further. Now, something happened some 7-8 years ago, and the town engineer is aware of it because she commented to me. I was involved in it. I said that storm drain has got to be broken somewhere between the bulkhead and the street. And I said, there used to be a drain there. I don't know what happened to it, a grating on the surface of the ground. That was an empty lot when our house was built. Maybe they ran roof drains into that storm drain through the above ground, because there was a grating, a storm grating above ground. That disappeared. Now, I don't know what's happened to the pipe underneath the ground there. It's probably non-existent. It's probably just a flat piece of metal. I don't understand, Jeff, why, if I may address you, Jeff.
That's fine.
I don't understand why all that money was expended to pitch the roads, to put the curbing in, to dam up the springs, to flood the lawns, to fill that catch basin that flows into the storm drain from one side of the street to the other side of the street, when the storm drain wasn't working. Now, I also was shown by a crew that there was a crack in the storm drain basin, the catch basin, and water was coming up from the water table into that catch basin, not from the canal. The valve may have been working, but water was coming up and filling the catch basin. He showed me bubbling up. They said they couldn't, it wasn't there in the area to fix it. I reported it. I don't remember if it was to Ken Shank or to.
What's that?
We paid to have that box fixed that I.
Well,
believe is referring to.
I don't know. Maybe it was, maybe, I'm not saying it was or wasn't, 'cause I never saw it being done, okay? But it's still full of water. And I want to regress just for a moment. A letter came out from the town, from the town office. Whether, I don't remember exactly whether it was a report from the town manager or from the town or whatever, said that our island is sinking. I have never seen a sinkhole or a drop in the sea. I haven't seen any houses collapse. The water comes in under the bulkhead, high tide, and goes out and takes sand with it. Yes, there are cavities underneath. All those houses are on pilings, a lot of the driveways are on pilings. The island, I have not seen any signs that the island is sinking, and I think to publicize that and put it into a public notice where people can get a hold of it, it just destroys our values. Never mind anything else. But back to square one. I don't understand why that storm drain was not repaired when the pitch was made on Bimini. Eleuthera, they ran a pipe down. Now, this is why I came up. I noticed just recently at medium tide, there was a pipe that big, okay, coming out between the point lot and, I don't know the address, Helper's old house, the second house in. There was a pipe coming out from, I don't know where it was coming from, okay? There's a pipe coming out. Water was coming out of that pipe like a fire hydrant at median tide, above median tide, not at low tide, at above median tide. So somewhere, I don't know if there's a pump station in there or whether it was just a catch basin with full of water. There was no rain. There was nothing that filled it that caused it to come out, but it was flowing to beat the band. Now, I don't understand why the focus can't be placed on piping to get the water out of the gutter into the. I mean, this should be grandfathered. I have emails going back to 2010, 11. Okay, that thick.
Well, I know the one you're talking about, that line there had a valve on the outside of it. And this was 3 years ago, and the valve broke. And that actually line is lower than most. The one you're talking about, the water comes in, so at median tide, water's gonna come in. If the valve, there's a valve we put in there actually midway into the
One
pipe.
on Eleuthera?
Mm-hmm. Not
That's
Eleuthera, no, down on, when you come down Spanish River to the end, where Benny comes, the cul-de-sac is.
Yeah.
There's one that comes out straight out to the main intercoastal. And we put a valve inside that pipe to try a new type of valve, because the old type of valve will stay open when the barnacles grow on it. But the problem is, again, it goes down to maintenance. But also the problem is when, in your place, we just get the engineer, because they tried doing it with the swales, and the reason you asked me before, why did we do it that way? Was a recommendation from the engineer who is supposed to know what to do, so we follow
Obviously
that
not.
direction. Now, we're here, now it looks like the consensus is we're flooding out again, so we need to get another,
Not again, continuous.
well, there is, it
And
does.
it's more than it was, because now all the water that's coming out of those two homes on the dry lots, okay, and being stored in the lawns is 24/7 filling that catch basin. So when it rains, there's no place for the water to go,
Especially if it's high tide. There isn't
especially if it's
anywhere.
high tide. And I don't understand why the storm drain is 4 or 5 feet down on the bulkhead. Why can't it be up? Why can't that, I don't know when it was built. you
Well,
know.
that's the thing, the infrastructure, if you, like, especially between your house and Mark's house, you're gonna tear that whole area out, and you have to put new pipe in there and a new
Well,
catch basin.
whatever has to be
So-
done.
But that's something that, I guess if we're gonna agree
mean,
on doing a
we're
study, we
all-
can bring it up to the town engineer.
We're all paying high taxes, a lot of taxes, and we're entitled to have, and I'm concerned about health conditions. I'm concerned about fire that Clara brought up. We had a fire in the splicing station, splicing box off the pole at the end of at the cul-de-sac of Spanish River Drive, where the FPL pipe is, post is. We had a fire in there. We lost 2 air conditioners. FPL helped out on the payment of it. But If a wire came down during that flooding, someone's gonna get electrocuted. Someone's gonna get hurt. It's breeding, I mean, everywhere, everywhere in the area is breeding of flies, but it's terrible. I mean, it's not right.
Well, I
And
guess
I just
it's-
feel that, I'll finish. Just one last thing is that I have been addressing this for 8 years at least. And, it's just an ongoing thing. I've lost faith in getting anything done about it because the focus is wrong. The focus is always on those springs. You got to get that water out of there. The water's got to come out. I don't care what you do to the spring. It's just going to keep flowing into Bimini Cove. And somehow that's got to be either another storm. There's an empty lot with a right-of-way, the town right-of-way. I don't know. I don't understand why they just didn't put a storm drain in there. Some guy came out and shouted, "I'm going to speak to my lawyer first." And all of a sudden, everything went away. That whole discussion, I have emails of that.
All right, so at this point, we hear what you're saying, so we can.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb.
Thank you
If I,
all.
if I could say, if you look at the engineer's recommendations, if
Are
we,
there any questions? Does anyone have any questions? about it?
this might apply to you. What Herb is saying here is we don't even know if the existing pipe is actually draining the storm
Well,
drain.
there's more than
right?
one, but this
Right, but-
particular one.
There's
is-
only one on Bimini.
Right, but if we took number 2 and 3, evaluate existing pipe and structure, investigate the viability of permanent pumping stations.
Well, let's move on. All right, so
If we-
so we've gotten the memo from the town engineer.
Right.
She gives us our options here. So the first thing we're gonna do is nail her down to, okay, give us an exact a proposal on what exactly you're gonna do to show us what it's gonna take to fix this. And I dare say it may not be permanently, because some of that stuff would be almost impossible to repair permanently. I mean, you
I
do,
don't know.
I mean, you have that, the
Everything is
spring.
repairable if the money's there
Well,
to
you're
spend.
gonna do it, and you're gonna constantly do it, so it's like you do paving the roads, just like you would do any other type of drainage.
Part of the problem
I
too is that when you start collecting this extra water, it's gotta go someplace. And if you put it, after you collect it into the intercoastal, you have a whole bunch of water standards that you need to meet. You're gonna have to pull a lot of permits. You're talking about a project that's several millions of dollars.
But this is not a new item. This is.
It
this could
doesn't
be
make any,
grandfathered.
no, there's no grandfather. When you start dealing with the pipes that exist, and you make these kinds of changes that you
Repair.
want to make.
Repair.
It's not repair. That's the problem. I've talked with the town attorney, I've talked with the engineer, about, these kinds of issues. And once you get to a degree of more than minor repair, you're talking about serious costs to pull the permits and do the retention and detention, just like the retention and detention pond at Woolbright. You're gonna need a place to store the money, the water.
There's no place to store the water.
Store the money.
yeah.
Put it in that's the problem. You can't just discharge it directly into the intercoastal
Okay.
without treating it.
It was discharged into the intercoastal
That's
prior
because
to 2009.
That's because you have pipes that pre-existed the regulations.
Bimini
You
Drive,
can,
yeah.
you can do minor repairs to that piping system, but once you do more than minor repairs to the piping system, you need to pull the permits and you have to meet DEP requirements for discharging what is, and you recognize the fact that the water's polluted. You've seen the brown water, it's going through the drain fields for the septic. Plus, you're getting water that's picking up all of the debris from the road services, the oil and all that stuff. And all the pollution that sits on the roofs after it comes out from the air gets picked up by the water. Plus, you're getting all the fertilizers and the pesticides that are in your lawns, and you got to, you got to get those
Barrier
precipitate
Island
out of the
consists-
water.
The barrier island consists of storm drains, all through.
Don't
all
disagree
through-
with you.
All through the county.
But that's why we had to put together that retention detention pond to alleviate the
Well,
flooding in the south end, which
yeah.
was a several $1 million project. I'm just
understand what you're, I understand.
And
what
I agree with you.
I've
There's-
seen signs on the gratings going into Spanish River Drive, going into whatever that canal is called, Spanish River, okay? On that side of the street of Spanish River Drive, I've seen signs, do not dump into this, because it flows into Lake Worth or something like that. I find it very difficult to believe anything that Lisa, I don't know her last name, so I'm referring to her as
Tropepi.
Lisa, okay, says. She believes the island is sinking. If the island is sinking, I want to see evacuation routes go in. I
Well-
want
well,
all
the
kinds of-
elevation
I want to
studies
see
for the-
I want to see all kinds of implements taken to get us off of that island when Spanish River Drive goes down.
All right, well, let's do this.
And
Before
I
let's-
have not
let's
seen
not
any
con-
signs of the island sinking. I have seen sand go out, and I've seen cavities. I had someone under my house for 6 weeks fixing the plumbing, okay?
I don't know whether it's sinking or not. I only can go by the
Well,
engine.
then
I'm not an
she shouldn't have
engineer.
said anything.
All right, Herb, let's tone it down. All right, so let's finish it. What we're going to do is that we have her memo, we have what she can
I
do.
would get an independent engineer, such as Commissioner Magruder has suggested.
Well, if we,
Thank you.
then that would have, we pay this engineer a fee.
Well, I think some $20,000 was supposedly to be set aside for that purpose.
The $20,000 is what she estimated the cost would be to do this study that you're asking of.
Yeah.
So that's what we would ask her to do and get a proposal to see what it would exactly cost. And then at that point, we're going to know what exactly can be done or not done. And I think that the latter is what we really need to know, what cannot be done. So at least we got to start somewhere.
Why don't we just fill it with cement, let it flood, let it drain out somewhere else, let it run off somewhere
All
else.
right.
Can I add one thing, Jeff? In the meantime, if we do have one of these storms, I'm sure Jamie's capable of getting those
Pump over there.
4-inch pumps over there and clearing that out. And I understand the water keeps on coming back, but at least you'll get some relief, which is what the town can provide to you right now.
The only relief would be to replace that storm drain, whether it be this.
But that's the
taken
engineer's
out and a
report.
new one put in. That storm drain is crushed.
All I'm saying is, right now, you'll have relief, Jamie will provide relief with the pumps, and then the engineer's gonna look at pumps and piping.
Well, I'll leave that up, that's beyond my expertise.
Thank you, Herbie.
But
Thank you.
all
Yes.
I know is that it only increased to 10 feet up my driveway and some 20 feet up the Caldwell driveway, okay, and out to my mailbox, okay, of Spanish River Drive Cove at the cul-de-sac. And since that road was pitched and since those curves were put in on the driveways.
Okay.
It used to be minor, an inconvenience, okay? Years ago, when we first bought the house, it was flooded all the way down Spanish River Drive when we came back from the closing. And I bought a house on waterfront in the back and the front, okay? Okay. Anyhow, that was fixed. That was fixed.
We got it.
And
We're gonna
the
have to-
storm drain was repaired, a valve was put in, it was cleaned. They haven't been cleaned in years now.
All right, Herb, thank you.
Okay, enough time.
Yes, ma'am. You have to come up and say your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Isabella Tremblay, 63 Spanish River. And just listening to all this, I just wanted to say, sounds wise to me to get somebody else this time to take a look at the problem. Another engineering firm, somebody else. I don't know, who did the study or, obviously they are
Herb,
really in the middle of it.
Excuse me, Herb, can't hear what
But
you're saying.
it just sounded reasonable and wise to get somebody to look with a fresh eye, maybe with a new solution. Instead of paying the $20,000 to the same person who tried to address, I understand, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. I'm just,
Thank you.
I think it makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Clara Caldwell, 48 Spanish River Drive. I want to thank Mr. Cos. I think that is a very good interim solution because we've been doing this or dealing with this since we purchased the property in 2002. And obviously, we want to see a long-term solution, but in the interim, anything that can be done to help alleviate the situation is really what we're looking for. And looking at it long-term, something that would help all of the residents. We all pay taxes, not just us, everybody, and it doesn't matter. And we all want to see what's best for the community, and I think that's why you're sitting there. So anything that you can do to help us resolve this issue, I think would be more than greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So what's the direction? The direction would be to,
A question first, or a housekeeping point of order here. If you were to choose to do this study and expend however many dollars you might want for an engineer to do it, we would need to pass a budget amendment from the commission to move dollars from some particular source to pay for it, because it's not budgeted for in the current year. So for example, sales tax dollars up to a certain amount could be amended to be earmarked to pay for this, or some other source within the existing budget.
okay, well, the first thing we can do, though, if we want to try a couple different engineers, why don't we send out an RFP of what we're looking at, use this memo as a template, and send out an RFP so that we get a couple different, or 3 or 4 different estimates on what it would cost to do that study. How's that?
Okay?
And in the meantime, Chief, if anything happens, can you man the pumps over there? Please.
Well,
I'll coordinate with the town manager to have maintenance figure out the best solution for having pumps on site so that we can respond, and we'll get some folks trained within the next week.
Okay. All right, so you have your direction?
yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to number 13, discuss independent information technology external audit of systems and software. Al, it's all you.
Be as brief as I can. During a discussion with Mr. Magruder in the beginning of June, he suggested that we consider an independent audit of the town's hardware and software systems to ensure that we are meeting current standards, our security and safety is being handled correctly, and that our software functions are working in the best interest of the town. That's the only way I know how to describe that, because software has certain functionalities. After that discussion, on June 9th, Mr. Magruder sent an email to the city manager requesting that I get the estimates and have them prepared for you for the July 10th meeting. Based upon the request that I received and how I interpreted it, the independent audit of the hardware and software system is a very broad term. I did go through Mr. Magruder's experience, and through discussion was that he had dealt with these issues in the past in his former life as a manager of a business. I took that into consideration and started reaching out to companies in the area that I believe that advertise for and I believe could provide those types of services. Independent audit services not related to a sales function, which we as a town receive on a regular basis. I will come in and do an audit of your system, and then I would like to propose that you buy all these things from me. So trying to do it independently. In this report, it outlines that I've contacted numerous information systems and information technology companies. The first one was Palmtech Computers. When I pulled them up, and after a recommendation from some of my colleagues, I discovered that that in fact was a company that one of Mr. Magruder's law firms had used extensively. They have a very, very solid reputation for management of law firms. They don't do the type of audits that we would require, and they don't specialize in government. They referred me to InfoStream, to a specific individual. I called him. He, in turn, gave me a considerable amount of his time and recommended that most of the audits that we were requesting are not truly security audits, because those are done through our government audits. Because of the way the town's set up, we're under very specific guidelines from the FBI, from Florida Department of Law Enforcement, because we contract in a way, with them to receive criminal justice information, and we retain personal identifying information, which is heavily regulated, as everybody is aware, if you go to your doctor or you have been a victim of identity theft. He recommended that we contact our CPA firm because Mr. Crowitz, in association with InfoStream and PalmTech, kind of work that way. There's a very specific IT audit function that's done for auditing of governments in their eyes. Mr. Crowitz, in turn, referred me to another CPA firm, Kaler, Dalton, and Levine, specifically Scott Porter, who was in the IT field, who worked with both of these individuals, and who coordinates those functions, and they do government auditing. He's familiar with Nolan, Holt, and Minor. Mr. Porter gave me a considerable amount of his time. Listened to how the town system is set up, what we currently have, and without making specific recommendations, pointed me toward Nolan, Holt, and Minor as part of our annual financial audit if we're going to be reviewing software. The information that I gleaned from doing this in general was our office software, Microsoft Office, Outlook, Excel, Word, and PowerPoint are an industry standard for business and government, and those are up to date. So everything else is a specialty software, and a firm to come in and look at that, I've been told, is basically a CPA firm or an accounting firm or someone who's auditing your business practices to determine if those softwares work. I explained to all of these people the audits that we are under for the FBI and CJIS, and provided them with an in-depth report of what that entails and the findings of our last audit in March of 2015. We are audited every 3 years by the FBI.
Chief, I hate to interrupt you. Can you define your use of the word audit?
So the security audit that's conducted on our system, okay,
That was my question.
so we start with a 22-page document that goes through
That's all I
soup
need.
to nuts. What do you have? What's your security? What is your what are your processes to stop intrusion, to determine that unauthorized users are trying to enter, that your user accounts are up to date, that there's no cross messaging going on, that there are controls in place.
That's good.
So no one person has, I like to say, the keys to the kingdom. Even the IT guy that has the master password can't get into certain of our accounting programs or things like that for security reasons. In turn, I talked to Nolan, Holt, and Minor, based upon the recommendation by Mr. Porter. Mr. Bennett referred me to Catherine Allen, who is a information technology professional and a CPA out of the area, who does those types of audits as part of government financial audits when necessary. I spoke to her at length. She's told me that she currently doesn't have the capability of doing it. She was going to reach out to an organization and get me some additional information. I have yet to hear back from her. In the interim, I reached out to a company who is heavily marketed as doing managed services and IT audits in West Palm Beach, and received a sales call. In the end, the estimates for these IT audits are between $4,000 and $10,000, dependent upon the specifics that you ask for. And until there is a focus or a better defined scope to what we would want to look at, that's as close to an estimate as I can give you, is between $4,000 and $10,000 based upon all these people have reported back to me.
Okay. Any questions?
I'd just like to comment, I was asked to, I had asked the chief to do this. My intention was to try and just cover the chief's back based on the problems that we had with the Tyler system, that I didn't want to see that happening with some of the other software programs. And so, as part of my research, trying to look at what the chief had reported, I went out and looked online at ENS, which is the company in Melbourne that has the contract to the town for computer maintenance service 24 hours and so on and so forth. And I have a question to the chief. It said that, I just signed off on a check that said that we had level 2 service. And in looking at their website, they have a basic, a professional, and a premium. So I'm assuming, and probably you shouldn't assume, but that level 2 would be the professional service that we
So,
have,
I
with the
don't-
agreement that we have with them.
I don't have the agreement in front of me, so please
Okay.
excuse me if I misspeak. Level 2 service refers to the 24-hour automatic instantaneous response back. If I call them at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
they have a very specific time frame to respond back to me. It's within 1 hour. We pay a premium for weekends and non-business hours and that level of service, and for their commitment to reconstruct our system from a mirror. If we have a catastrophic failure, if we have a ransomware, that's come up recently, if everybody's been reading it in the paper, I'm sure, attack of that type, that's a clause in the IT managed services program that we ask for so that we can maintain continuity of operation, because we are a 24-hour operation, and the way we work, the most that we want to ever have to rebuild if we have a catastrophic failure is 1 day.
Right.
And that's kind of the industry standard. So that's what the level 2 service is. We have a professional level of service contract with level 2 responses.
My question, though, is that in going down the list of the level 2, it provides and answers most of the questions that I had. It does take care of the basic programs of Microsoft, the email service, and so on, Excel, and those types of things, which I think, we can look at without a problem. But what you talked about was the specialty programs. And specialty programs, what they have when they have applications that they monitor, major databases, critical applications, that is not part of the level 2 or the professional service as it's outlined in their criteria. And my point is that maybe we should go back and look at what that means, number one, and two, if we upgraded to the next level, if that would not cover and solve the problems or potentially put off any problems that we may have with the specialty programs. We need to have somebody look at those specialty type of programs.
That's a new question.
Understand.
So let me,
Well,
if I may, can I address that, because I think it may answer some of your questions. From a historical perspective, when the town moved from the old building to the new building, we came into the computer age. We just did it kicking and screaming. So we took an old server and brought it into this building, which was designed to be wired for people having workstations that never had them before, all of those things. And we fumbled through a little bit of transition from a PC-based system to a server-based system. We had a computer person that was hired to do computer work through the town. He did a fabulous job until we built out our network, and we realized we had some major problems, and the costs were absolutely astronomical in maintaining day-to-day operations. So the former chief and myself got together, and while we were bringing the police department, because the town has always had the Tyler Fund Balance programs as far as I can remember, and we were using an IPTM, Institute of Police Technology and Management, free program for managing some of our alarm stuff and things like that were DOS-based programs. And then we had the building and occupational license program that we currently have now is the same as when I started here in 2005. Those programs are not, and please understand, those programs are not necessarily bad programs, but with all due respect to anybody, they are not serving the town's needs the way we would expect today. They were 15 years ago, I believe, the way they were being used. During the transition from the PC computer guy that came in every day and tinkered with stuff and checked Google to see how to fix some of these things, we moved to a fully automated managed services model. Part of the reason for that was we went from one service provider for internet and telephone to another, and they offered that service at a very reasonable price, and we bought it. Hook, line, and sinker if you're a fisherman. Okay? And then we realized that they sold us a bill of goods, and we were getting nothing. And the more research that was done, the more of an indication was that we needed to do a wholesale change of a lot of things, bring things up to speed for security and safety purposes within our network, and to address all of the issues that on a day-to-day basis were happening so that we can have a more efficient operation. We went through that exercise. We ended that exercise by contracting with Essential Net Services to come in and take care of a lot of those problems. They do manage databases. They do that. They provide me with weekly and monthly reports as to network health, viability, and they have automatic monitoring systems 24 hours a day on intrusions and unusual and event tracking issues that they see. So they set up these things that tell them. In fact, Essential Net Services directed us to certain types of the software that we were using and recommended many years ago that we consider changing them. That's all they will do. If the software package that we have, we say it still works for us and we don't want to change it, that's okay. It's not harming the system. It's not crashing on a regular basis. Some of the things that were experienced with Tyler Technologies are not foreign to me. They used to happen quite a bit more, but people knew to look for them as they were happening. So you have staff transition who don't see those things, are not 30-year employees that are used to dealing with that particular nuance of that product, and it becomes a problem. I think that the town is doing exactly what you're asking. We're looking at our software on a regular basis. I think that the issue that happened in March certainly brought to your attention the need to be much more critical in thinking about whether we have the right stuff or we don't. That's probably good. The police department, in turn, that made me go back and my lieutenant go back and do an inventory of the stuff we're using and start to change some of that, because we don't want to be in that same position where we're using legacy systems that, because we can get by with it and it's cheaper actually, when it's not. If we have a catastrophic failure, we can't do it.
In a nutshell, right? So, to sum it all up, where are we at with our system we have right now?
Our system is healthy.
Okay.
According to all of the IT experts that I can talk to, our system is healthy. It is secure, as secure as it can be in this day and age. There are some considerations on the police department side for software that we need to make. I don't think we need to do them wholesale, to be honest with you, and we're trying to do it piecemeal so that it doesn't come with that big
All right,
cost.
that'll be in your budget.
And then there is Tyler Technology and building programs that Town Hall uses that I think that have come to light need to be addressed as quickly as possible.
In the chief's own memo, he says that it's acceptable to the FBI, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and the DMV. So if they'll...
That's the security, that's the security side and our
discussion.
controls.
Right.
The software is a decision, I think, that
So,
is
but that does not
efficiency and
include-
effectiveness of it.
Steve, that does not include the software programs that are on the administrative side.
Totally agree.
So-
Gotcha. He's talking security.
I spoke personally to Mr. Bennett one of his comments to me is something that is near and dear to my heart as a department head. And he said, the software that we currently have does not give us a day-to-day operating number. It doesn't give us real-time numbers. It's only giving us a real-time number 15 to 30 days after that number exists when we reconcile the bank accounts. That's the only time you get the real picture, and it's already 15 to 30 days old. The newer stuff that we have is supposed to do that on a regular and continuous basis. If you post it to this place, it automatically does a lot of functions. It has a lot more functionality. I think it will give the commission and the manager and the town clerk and myself a better day-to-day operating picture of the budget. And I think that going forward, instituting something like that, it's just like the operating systems that we use. We've gone through Windows 98 to Windows XP to Windows 7, and we're getting ready to go to Windows 10. If we don't keep up with that, the old stuff still works. It's just not as secure and it's not as efficient.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Is there anything else, Don?
No.
Okay. I want to go back to the previous, Jamie,
Yes.
with the Spanish River and Bimini. Send Line Tech over there and have them look at that one catch basin that's on Spanish River that goes out to the main intercoastal and see if that valve is actually, because that's a pipe we lined.
Right, the one on
Last year,
Mr.
too.
Stolitsky's side that goes between his property and the one to the east.
No, not Feehan's one. That's a different one. That's one between Mark, Herb's and Mark Feehan's house. That one, you may want to have the guys look over the seawall, make sure there's the valve's actually not stuck open. I'm talking about the one on the other side, the other catch basin. We put the valve that's inside, actually inside
Right.
the pipe. And they're gonna have to camera it. So if you could send them over there and take a look at that, because that might solve quite a bit of problems right off the bat.
We will. The last time we did scope that, it was in good working order, but we'll check it again.
Yeah, might
And
as
I
well.
also had Barnacle Busters out this year doing all the flap valves. So
Okay.
there's heavy maintenance going on for that.
All right, thanks.
And if I can on that item too, I know that your direction was to do an RFP pursuant to Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, depending on, I'll have to get with Lisa, depending on what she thinks the cost might be, we might have to do an RFQ rather than an RFP.
Okay.
So I don't know, but I just want to make the commission aware of that you gave direction to send it out, so it might be an RFQ rather than an RFP.
All right, so you're just giving us your Ps and Qs.
There you go. That's, yes, sir, I am.
All righty. Let's talk about number 14, discussion regarding one-way status of Beachway Drive east to west.
You have the report, the preliminary report, with a list of items that I've drawn up that require review. A preliminary project flow, if you should choose to consider this. At this point in time, the Florida Department of Transportation engineer and the Palm Beach County traffic engineer have requested that if the town wishes to continue, that we do a turning and movement study on Beachway and the two most adjacent north and south through streets to determine the viability of the project before they will comment any further. I've included a diagram. You ask about a temporary closure and temporary issues. I gave you a preliminary cost of $16,750 for a temporary closure. That included the $3,750 for a traffic turning and movement study, and that is having the Florida Department of Law Enforcement do the analysis of that at no cost to us. They've offered that to us.
So, just to, because I remember I spoke with you, it was gonna be 1,500, so now it's zero, to actually get a study of what the hell's going on with Ocean Ridge traffic in that area?
It's approximately $3,750 to
Right.
do the complete turning and movement study.
Right.
And then to have the analysis done. After they do that study, it has to be analyzed by an engineer. DOT has agreed to take the second portion of that on at no cost. They have engineers that can do that. And they've recommended, they gave me a list of 3 engineering firms that they use that are state certified, that can get the information. One of them is in Fort Lauderdale. He proposed the price. I confirmed it with another engineering firm. I'm familiar with Trident. They've done a lot of studies in town. I'm comfortable with that, and it's a cost savings if you choose to go forward. But Their recommendation is that those turning and movement studies be done at the peak traffic times, and they indicated they would prefer it to be done in the season, not out of the season. That was a preference of that.
So, and I've been talking to the chief about this a lot, and that DOT would prefer that any we gotta do a traffic study at some point in town to find out where the traffic is going to go. But the DOT is asking that we do it later in the winter where there's more cars, et cetera, so we can get a more accurate flow of what is necessary. What do we need to do to protect the quality of life in our town? So in the conversations with the chief, I thought in the meantime, we can sort of shelve this for now, I'm thinking, and just have a discussion perhaps among us and the public, anyone wants to chime in, about simply putting up 1 or 2 stop signs on Beachway. And either they work, people like them, if they don't work, we take them down. Does that sound like a reasonable idea to you, Chief?
Before I'll commit to you, I need to look at the road and determine if there is enough stacking capability and enough
Sure.
free flow space before you don't put a stop sign every 10 feet. That's the thing. I really need to look at that before I say it's a great idea. And,
We'll look
we
at
put
it
the town in a
before,
liability.
before next meeting, bring it back and see what you think.
I will try and see what the regulations are regarding how close stop sign can be and get that back to you next meeting.
That's great. Is that it?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to 14A, request for partial release of claim of lien in reference to 9 Ocean Avenue as applies to property in Delray Beach. Jamie? Ken?
Yes, this is
Mike?
a walk-on item, so we have the applicant here and his representative.
Good evening. Ken Khalil, 54 Northeast 4th Avenue, Delray Beach, office address, 86 Island Drive, South Ocean Ridge. We're here on a request, Mike DeBose is here, an almost 20-year resident of Ocean Ridge. And we have an unfortunate circumstance, maybe fortunate. But right now, there is a lien on his property that was recently discovered, relatively. And that lien is on the property on Ocean Avenue for the movement of a lack of a better term, an oversized shed off of the setback. And apparently this has been going on for some time, but we're not here to discuss the merits of that. But in doing the lien, it has tentacles, and the tentacles attach to a property that Mr. DuBose has, a small home in Delray Beach that is in the process, be upfront, of being sold. And it is hopes that that the proceeds from the sale of that home, he is prepared to reconstruct and redo the home here in Ocean Ridge on Ocean Avenue. So we're asking kindly that the lien that has the tentacles, not that the main lien on the house, we're not asking for the removal, we're not asking for the waiver of that, none of that. We're asking that a partial release be put on the other property so that that transaction can go forward. Mike is here. He will answer any questions. He'll confirm whatever you want to confirm.
Now, didn't we do one of these a long time ago?
We've done not only once, we've done it many times.
No.
It's not a new occurrence. I know we've waived things in the past and waived liens left and right over the years. And we've definitely released, had partial releases. These things have tentacles. I think this situation's a little different. You know, you do have almost a 20-year resident here that in good faith is trying to improve his property, but for other issues. And those issues are starting to resolve themselves. And he is prepared to move forward and handle this. But it takes certain resources to do so, as you can well imagine. And he's now going to be in an opportunity to proceed forward, and that is a positive thing for the town. So that's what we're asking.
So
Mike?
if I, just the way I'm listening to this, it seems like a win-win for the town and for Mike. If Mike gets the money, then he can proceed with removing the obstacle that's in the setback and begin the construction of his new family home.
That is-
And he
there's no
can't, he
doubt.
can't get the money unless we release the lien against the Delray property. By releasing the lien against the Delray property, we're not releasing the $78,000. We're not giving you a pass. That would be a separate process, if you will, if we even go that way. So I frankly think this is a win-win. Am I missing something
No,
here?
you're not missing
Well,
anything at all.
Here's what you're missing, okay?
Curmudgeon.
It's a three-year-old, almost three-year-old claim of lien. And, you know, with all the things that he claims was wrong with the findings, he had the opportunity to appeal it, he didn't appeal it. He hasn't removed the item that's causing the claim of lien. When we've released liens in the past, virtually all of them have been released because they've come in compliance. He's not coming in compliance.
Because he doesn't have the money to come in.
Excuse me, hang on just a second. I've attempted to come in compliance.
You
The
got
same
a statement,
person-
name and address for the record?
Mike DeBose, 9 Ocean Avenue. Here, I have the plans that I submitted to come into compliance, but Don denied them after I came in 2 weeks prior asking for them to accept them. And
2
are
weeks
they
prior to
complete?
what?
To turning them in, to submitting the
What
plans.
date?
Okay, wait a minute, before this gets crazy.
tried to
Okay,
come into compliance
let me
and
just
I'm
finish
denied.
my statement, and
Yeah,
then
go ahead.
you can say whatever you need to say. So it's not a new thing, it's 3 years old, okay? And we have no way to make sure that you follow through with your plans to remove the, or correct the issue giving rise to the claim of lien.
That's not true.
At the end of the day, if we do what you want us to do, we still are going to have a property that's not in compliance. And correct me if I'm wrong, we need an ordinance to address that issue. Do we not, Mr. Town Attorney? We don't have an ordinance to that effect.
No, we do not have an ordinance that addresses specifically like the partial releases of lien from other property where the lien is not attached to. However, it appears from what I discovered in looking over some prior minutes of this commission that in the past you have done partial releases of lien as it relates to other properties outside of the town of Ocean Ridge. You know, that where by operation of statute, that's where this lien attaches to those. Now, as far as trying to do anything else or, you know, to try to have any other agreements or something like that with the property owner, I would probably say let's not go down that road because, you know, right now I'm just looking at saying, no, I think you can do it based on what you have done in the past. However, I would suggest that we have an ordinance that kind of clarifies this process.
And we tried to come up with a number of different things over the past 48 hours or 72 hours from Friday to today. Talked with you, talked with the town attorney, you, Mr. Khalil, the applicant, the town manager, and the town attorney, and we couldn't come up with anything that would, you know, get us to the point where you are in compliance. And we can't collect a check from you, because even though we would be collecting the check, you're still not in compliance. That's a problem I have with this whole thing. If you, and you know, you and I know how the process works. You get a contract for sale and purchase. That was a while back. You knew this sometime before today's meeting. We didn't even have an opportunity to try to work this out before getting this emergency, place it on the calendar for today. You claim there is a verbal discussion. Be that as it may, I get this on Friday and I try to do something between Friday and today. I wanted to see if we could amend our code to give us a legal basis to do this. And I didn't, you know, you were in a position that you couldn't agree to continue the thing. So with that, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of other detail of some of the things that I found out, but with that said, I mean, I just have a problem releasing the lien absent the quote, the ordinance that gives us the right to accept some sort of partial payment and the guarantee that the correction takes place. And with that said, I said my piece.
All right, well, I disagree. I think it's a completely separate piece of property. The town has the lien going on the piece of property that is the offending piece of property, and just by rule of law, it happened to catch the other piece of property. So, in my opinion, that has nothing to do with us, only the piece of property that's in the town proper. And to Mr. Bose's credit, he is a 20-year resident of the town, which you have to take some of that into account. And if he, put it this way, the town has gone through many of these where we have looked at liens and properties and gone through and reduced and, whatever it took. But I mean, to start saying, okay, we're gonna reach out and we're gonna, encumber every piece of property for the lien we're putting on the property that is just in the town and completely tie him up to where he couldn't even use those funds, if that's what he's doing. I'm not questioning your veracity. I'm just saying if that's what you're doing. But to do that, to me, just seems unfair as the town. I mean, we're just concerned with what's happening in Ocean Ridge, not in Delray. So to me, releasing the lien is.
You also have next door neighbors who apparently, complain about the.
That is true.
We don't want to
go
there.
So, I mean, you got to be fair to those neighbors too. I mean,
You're being fair by you're being fair by the daily fining that he is getting on the property right now. That's the fair part of it. It just so happens he owns another piece of property in Delray.
at what point then do we, get a compliance?
Well, we've been
and
working on that diligently, as you know, and he has a plan, and that's been in the works, and we have had a little bit of issue with our town building department, or building officials, so, I mean.
By the way, if I could just add one thing,
Go ahead.
maybe it'll help you here, Jim. Mike's character, okay, remember Storm Sandy came in? What was that, 18 months ago? 2 years ago? So,
What?
Storm Sandy.
Oh.
Storm Sandy came in. There was a house on the beach going in, the lawn was going, everything's going down. That owner of that house made a desperate call around to every single person he knew in Ocean Ridge. 3 people showed up with shovels, sand, and bags and worked till midnight to save that guy's property. And he's one of them. At no cost to the owner, no charge, whatever. So that's a good neighbor.
In good faith to clearing this issue up, I do have the plans to move the structure out of the setback. I have also contracted and deposited with a contractor to build a new home. So I am moving forward in good faith. It is a non-refundable deposit. And so to think that it's going to continue on is, I think it's clear by my actions of funding that contract that I want to clear this up. I need to clear that up before I could build a new home. I want to clear it up for the neighbors. So
Okay.
all I'm asking for today is just, abatement of the lien on the Delray property, not the Ocean Ridge property.
So I'd like to make a motion unless there's more. I'd like to grant the request for a partial release of claim of lien in reference to 9 Ocean Avenue as it applies to the property in Delray Beach, noted in the memorandum from the town manager.
Second?
So moved. Second.
Your second, Dan?
Yes.
Okay, second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Thank you. All right, moving on to number 15. All right, this ordinance number 619 is this the second reading?
Yes, the
This is
site
second
plan one that you all
final
had
reading.
discussed previously.
So, in review, this is the one that we had
We're
a
gonna
workshop.
I'm gonna move to,
Just,
what I gotta do, move
Well,
to delay,
you don't even have
postpone?
No, I mean, if you can, because this is second reading, open it up for a public hearing, and then I imagine the motion will move to basically, to deny this ordinance
it?
on second reading.
let's see, I would do the motion, and then the second, then the discussion.
Okay,
How's that?
that's fine.
Okay,
So you want to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Public comment. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on. Just so you know, we had a workshop.
Yeah.
Remember, we had a workshop, and that particular ordinance was kind of hot point.
It was a
So we
non-starter.
originally sent it back to the
P&Z.
P&Z to redo it and see what we could come up with. All right, moving on to the next one, ordinance number 623. I think, Brian, do you want to expand on this? Isn't it
I
floodplain?
can, I guess, do we want to, do you
This is
want
the
to
second reading, so
read
It's
the
a second
caption?
reading. Go ahead and read it.
Read it.
Ordinance number 623, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 1-3, Definitions, amending Chapter 66, Environmental Regulations by repealing Article 2, Flood Damage Prevention, and enacting a new Article 2, Floodplain Management, to adopt flood hazard maps, to designate a floodplain administrator, to adopt procedures and criteria for development in flood hazard areas and for other purposes, and amending Chapter 67, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 3, Technical Codes and Other Construction Standards, Division 1 generally, to clarify the minimum floor elevation and to adopt technical amendments to the Florida Building Code, providing for codification, conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Yes, this ordinance is the one that it is basically a model ordinance that the state floodplain coordinator has issued to all municipalities in the state of Florida for us to adopt, a form of this. And this is something that's been done in other municipalities around here, and it basically provides, or it updates our regulations and then provides for adoption of the latest flood hazard maps. And this is a requirement in order for the town to be able to obtain proper FEMA reimbursements, and for the town residents also to be able to obtain flood insurance as well. So I would recommend that you adopt this on second reading.
All right.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 623 as set forth in item number 16 of our agenda tonight.
I second Jim's motion.
All right, motion and second. Any other discussion? Public comment? I'd get to it.
Been a long time listening to Herb, a long time. It's actually pretty, Christine Dassett, and I'm wearing my Florida Coalition for Preservation hat right now. We, as the coalition, got involved with Delray Beach. They do task forces, how they tackle large considerations with citizens that form these task force to come up with recommendations for the commission. We were on a rising water task force for over 2.5 years, and I know that Gail is going to be so disappointed that she's not here to get one of these, but if you wouldn't mind just taking one and passing it on. It is the final recommendations after 2.5 years that we made to the town of Delray Beach. And just as a real quick kind of soundbite, the whole reason for the task force was for developing recommendations for local actions to reduce social, environmental, and economic impacts which will result from rising sea level, storm surges, as well as more frequent and severe flooding related to climate change. It was a non-political task force. There was some wonderful gurus and engineers, and then there was some plain old folks like us that are just worried about the quality of life. We came up with over 100 recommendations and action steps that can be taken. Some of it's very interesting reading, some of it went way over my head, but the bottom line is whether or not we actually believe in climate change or it is just a cycle that is happening in our atmosphere, rising waters are happening. They're obviously happening on Spanish River and Bimini Cove. Briney is dealing with the same thing on the west side of their town, which is only 3 feet above sea level and has had tremendous flooding problems. Delray has problems every time we have a full moon at any of their marinas along the intercoastal. So my only pledge is, my only request is, I did send this to Jamie. One of the outcomes of this Rising Water Task Force was try to get a unified group of all the municipalities from inlet to inlet, so from Boca to Boynton, and try to get them together, once a quarter to share issues that they're having, share experiences that have been successful, haven't been successful, and just kind of getting the dialogue going. So their first meeting is going to be on July 14th. Jamie has the agenda, and I would just encourage Ocean Ridge in some form or fashion, either elected officials, staff, or just concerned citizen who wants to represent our municipality to get involved. It doesn't, you know, doesn't cost anything. They're trying to keep the meetings to 2 hours at a maximum, and so that's that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, and last?
The contract of the town manager. Sorry we're doing it so late in the day. By the contract that the town has with the town manager, the commission needs to give 60-day notification if we're not going to continue the agreement. The agreement auto-renews on October 1st. I've had discussions from the podium with Jamie, and I've also had some discussions with him earlier. The 60-day, by the way, is July 31st, which is why it's coming up at this meeting. This is the last meeting that the commission has before the contract auto renews. I'll speak for myself, and then I hope other commissioners can join in. I would not renew Commissioner Manager Titcom's contract at this point. I've had various problems with getting direction or getting results from Jamie. I think he's a true city manager. He's incredibly process-oriented. He's not results-oriented. And we have a very tiny town here, and we need people that are much more results-oriented. I don't know how many of you have been to the budget meetings over the last 18 months. They were quite painful. When Jamie first joined us, he sold himself as a budget expert, and I'm not trying to be negative to Jamie. I've had these discussions with him. As a budget expert, that's not true. Now we're shifting some of his responsibility onto the town clerk. And I just think that Jamie is used to running a larger ship and needs kind of a body of people beneath him to run. And Ocean Ridge isn't big enough to absorb Jamie. I don't know if you guys know Jamie's history, but he was running the League of Cities for 12 years. That's a pretty powerful, large position. So my recommendation is not to renew the contract of the town manager and instead move to a month-to-month and see if we can, who knows, Jamie might not want, if others agree with me, Jamie might not want to do that, and perhaps he'll leave us. Maybe he will want to do that. And, you know, show the town that he can communicate better with the commissioners and be more results-oriented and become more familiar with the town and our needs versus the process of the town that don't necessarily address our needs. So that's my point.
Okay, well.
So, by the way, it's just simply, it's not a termination by any means, it's just not renewing and then going to a monthly if both sides agree.
Well, you would want to make a motion and then take a vote.
Want to motion it?
That's what I would do, make a motion, then we can go to discussion.
All right, so I'll make a motion that the town not renew town manager Jamie Titcom's contract, which would begin on October 1st, 2017.
Is there a second?
I will second it only for discussion, because I have not made up my mind yet.
Okay, so here's the discussion.
I am really torn because I thought Jamie was doing a reasonably good job until the May issues arose with respect to the computer system crashing. And I had a staff meeting with Jamie, and I told him my view of the commission based on what had happened in an open meeting, you know, with Mr. Kaz, Commissioner Kaz, questioning when the contract came up for renewal. It was kind of handwriting on the wall that there was going to be at least one vote to not renew the contract, and he needed to address the issue of the computer crash and the fact that he had to hire an outside auditor to come in and find out where the problem was, and nobody caught that problem You may recall, I'll just briefly go over it. We had a computer crash, income was lost, not from the coffers, but from the reporting. And essentially it was because nobody was properly reconciling the monthly bank statements to the general ledger. And it showed up in I believe the April printout that we got. There was zero in income columns where we knew we should have had some income. For example, we're still should be getting income from ad valorem taxes. That was zero. We should have been getting income in from, I think, some tax revenues collected by the county. That was zero. There's a whole bunch of zeros in that column. Somebody should have caught that in April and addressed it in April. It went, according to Jamie, all the way through, the failure to catch that issue went all the way through the February following year when they put the books together and sent them to the auditor, and he said, you guys got a problem, you're missing, nothing's reconciling. They had to bring in Mr. Hartley, I believe it was, to go back and do a forensic reconstruction of this. And I told Jamie, you've got to come back and explain what happened and give us cogent reasons for this, because it was clear at that open meeting that someone was going to question whether or not we should renew the contract. And at the following meeting, we had essentially a several sentence paragraph that tried to explain this, and I thought it was just one or two sentences that really addressed it, and part of it was wrong, and the other part of it blamed in part staff. And it really wasn't staff's fault, because the one who should be looking at this information ultimately is the town manager. And so that's why, I question whether we should renew the contract or not. And I still haven't made up my mind. So you folks all know what my concern is, and I'd like to hear from some of the other commissioners on their point of view, too.
That'd be me.
Well, there's two other.
We're all looking at you.
Well, Herb gets to call you Jeff, I get to call you Mr. Mayor Commissioner Sir, so we have to hear from you, too.
As the new kid on the block, I have spent a considerable amount of time with Jamie and Tracy on trying to make the conversion from business environment and business accounting and business systems over to that of a town and regulated by town, state regulations and taxing, and it's not been an easy task. I'm still got a ways to go. He's been extremely helpful to me. He's been very reasonable in affording me any time that I've called and asked, can we get together? We've met every other week since I first joined the commission. I think, my opinion, to not renew his contract at this time is not in the best interest of the town, because we are in the middle of a budgeting system right now, budgeting process. And if we took him month to month and he decided to go next month, before we've done the tax.
The contract goes through September 30th.
Okay.
So
But-
Jamie would be here for the budgeting process.
Okay, fine. I still think that it would be in the best interest of the town to renew his contract at this point in time. He's been here a year and a half, and coming in, replacing a town manager that was here before him, and Karen, that was here pretty much running the ship for a number of years. There was a lot of change going on when he came in, and I just think maybe another renewal for another year would benefit us all.
All right. Well, I think Jamie is an actual excellent town manager, but has a lack of experience in budgeting. which, and we've had discussion before, I believe that the town itself has been, when we look to hire the new town manager, there's chairs right here, and we specifically asked, do you have budget and finance experience? And that's what we were looking for from day one, because we lost Karen, who was doing the budgets pretty much by herself, and we now had a new town manager and a new town clerk, and the town clerk would not be in the same position to do the budgeting as the old town clerk. Now, having said that, he is fully accessible, he's good to the residents, he does the job as best as he can, I believe he can, except for that, the budget experience. And that's where I have the problem, because the budget and the explanation of the budget is never right. It's never right on. It's just not. So there's where I have the problem. And, that's why, we're at a crossroads, at a fork in the road. Well, if we do it for another year, am I going to be dealing with this budget issue again next March, April, and May? So the decision has to be made at this point. Do you go month to month? His contract ends October 1st. So, or it begins again October 1st, ends September 30th. So that is where I feel that we need to either, if Jamie goes month to month, there's some kind of
Criteria.
class or something that, he can familiarize himself to where we can get to that point where I don't want to be going through budget meetings every time and questioning what exactly are you talking about, and why is it so convoluted that I need to be, I basically got to ask you twice, what is it that number means? And we went over it today with that thing with the town hiring a new in-house inspector. So it is a fork in the road. I mean, and it's not an easy decision at all. But it comes a point of what is best, like you said, Don, what is best for town of Ocean Ridge? Well, having a good town manager that is great to the people and is good to the residents, and he does his job, except for the fact that he's not really experienced, or doesn't seem to be experienced with budget. And there's where I have to start thinking of, maybe going to a month-to-month deal. So that's my opinion.
Can I make a couple more
How do you do it?
statements?
You can say what you want. I mean, it's almost.
I mean, here's, in keeping with what you said, I don't know if you noticed it, but at page 8 of our budget, page 8 of the budget, if you look at the summary of capital assets, net accumulated depreciation, we have 2015 equipment, $1,104.27, and 2016, $18,358,762. Then for infrastructure, those numbers were flipped. $18,357,987 and $1,094,397. So when I called Mr. Bennett to go over, the budget, the audit rather, the audit, I asked him what happened there, and he said, well, he said, it's my fault, I didn't catch it, but those were the numbers that were given to me by the town. And he goes through these numbers to catch this stuff, but he didn't catch it as a mistake. And if the number came from the town, he didn't provide that number, that was a number given to him by the town. Another issue, and this is why I asked our audit presenter today if he had discussed these issues with Mr. Bennett, because when you get through to the end, and if you read through this thing, there's really no discussion about what happened in March with the crash of the system and the hiring of Mr. Hartley and going through and putting all these numbers together. Really, there really isn't a discussion about what that is and what the problem was and how to resolve the problem. And I asked Mr. Bennett about that, And, I mean, I was hoping he would be here today to explain that, and that's why I asked, what's his name? Mr. Morton, about that, and he didn't know the answer. But when I talked to Mr. Bennett about it, he essentially said, I'm not hired to audit the quality of the personnel. I'm here to audit the structures that are in place, essentially. And I asked him, does that mean that the problem wasn't not within the computer program, it was the management? And he said, essentially, yes. So, you know, I have a hard time voting to renew because I agree with Commissioner Kaz and Mr. Mayor that one of the main functions is for the town manager to oversee our budget. And we have all these issues arising with the budget and the finance that arose, cost the town several thousands of dollars to get the books back in balance. Like I said, it didn't cost the town any money, and I recognize that. Nobody stole any money. But, you know, I don't know how they were balancing the books every month if that income they didn't realize they didn't record that income until February of the following year. So, and I would hope that if we don't renew the contract and he agrees to go to a month-to-month basis, maybe we can then, you know, resolve the issue and hopefully get into a longer-term contract.
Well, correct. I agree with what Commissioner Bonfiglio said on this, and I hope Jamie would agree. The problem we have is it's July 10th. We've got to make the decision at this meeting. So let's say we make the decision to go to month, then we are in we're not so rushed. Then we can sit down with Jamie and say, Jamie, maybe we need to hire an outside firm to do the budget and let Jamie concentrate on what Jamie can do, if we so choose to do that, and then negotiate a new contract with Jamie without this time pressure. Right now, we have to make a decision today.
Jamie, what do you have to say?
I'm not really prepared to respond to all the individual points that you're making, other than we work every day to try to fix the systems and correct the legacy systems of this town, which includes the responsibility I have for all of it, and working with all the employees and working with all the anomalies that have appeared. You're correct. The employment contract that I have renews automatically every year at October 1st, and I work at your pleasure. Obviously, I can't be good at what I do unless I have your support and direction and appreciation as I do it. So if you think there are deficiencies that need to be addressed, then if we can identify what those are, I will work on those items to try to deliver better level of service for you on those items that you think there might be deficiencies. Otherwise, I can't comment on what a new contract might look like. That's something that we would have to sit down and discuss under the terms of the existing contract. I work every day to try to make Ocean Ridge the best little town it can be. And I have tremendous experience in budgeting and finance. I've been doing it for 40 years. I've been doing it 20 years in the government sector. We inherited a lot of things that go on in this town that we're trying to evolve into newer, better practices with all the tools and personnel available to do that. And I know I'm responsible for all of it, and I'll continue to do that every day. I have the privilege that I'm working for the town. I'm sorry if I've disappointed you in certain areas. The interviews that you referred to, I made a point of specifying that accounting and auditing functions are just those, and that wasn't part of that deal, if you will. And if that information isn't accurate, and we don't start with accurate information, it makes it harder, longer, and more problematic to get to the right answer quicker. We are doing that as a town-wide staff, with hopefully me leading the town-wide staff to accomplish that every day. So there have been tremendous transitions in the town of longtime employees, of legacy systems, and certain operating procedures and policies, and we've been evolving those, and there's bound to be growing pains involved with that process. But I think the facts will speak for themselves over time, and anything I can do to improve my performance for the town, I'm certainly up to the task of doing that.
Thank you. All right.
Well, you know, I don't know if Jamie is willing to do month to month, but what I would like to see is how we get through, and this is part of the problem, how we get through the budget process this year. Because if we can get through the budget process this year without a problem, and I know we're going to replace the bookkeeping accounting system, the Tyler,
Yeah, Tyler Tech.
Tyler Tech.
Except the audit report said it's fine.
Well, it needs to be updated. But, you know, my suggestion is, let's get through the budget, if Jamie's agreeable to staying on a month-to-month basis after that point in time, I'm agreeable to, you know, hiring him on a month-to-month basis. I just don't want to get stuck in another one-year contract and then have these same types of problems crop up during the budget process and then in the following year. So if we can get through the budget and we don't have the problems with the budget that we had last year, and we get through, you know, through October, and we get through a couple more months after October without any problems, because otherwise I think you're great with respect to.
Maybe it's a matter of
Yeah.
defining a job description.
Mhm.
This include, the town
I mean,
manager's
I don't have,
job.
I meet with Jamie, I have great discussions, he helps me through understanding some of these things, I think he's good with the citizens, the residents.
Well, what about, I mean, I meet with him once a week.
Yeah.
But what is the mechanism, say we renew the contract, okay, and what is the mechanism that if you can't take it anymore in April or next May, and, you know, we want to sever the relationship, what is that mechanism?
Then we would have to pay the termination provisions in the current agreement, which is, I think, you know, just 90 days or it's 3 months' pay. Then we would pay, I believe, certain medical payments or, you know, certain payments to him that what his medical insurance costs, things of that nature. And then his, as far as his outstanding vacation or sick leave in accordance with town policy, that's what we would do.
Okay, so
And what do we pay compared to not renewing? In other words, if we do not renew, what do we have to pay?
Nothing. I mean, we don't, you know, we wouldn't renew it. I think he would still be entitled, I would have to take a closer look at this, but I think he'd still be entitled to his, you know, vacation or sick leave probably, but, you know.
Accrued
but I
vacation
mean,
and sick
it's-
leave,
Yeah, but I mean, it's, you know, you wouldn't just come September 30th, I guess, that's it. You both part ways.
Unless you come up with a piece of paper that Jamie and the town agrees to, that goes month to month.
Yes.
And then that would be a decision that Jamie would make and we'd make.
or quarter to quarter or whatever.
Yeah.
You
I
just-
mean,
you-
it's-
I guess basically what you're getting at is that you don't want to be locked into another year.
Of paying on the budget.
We don't want to be locked in, I mean, I don't think we should be locked into another year, and if it turns out it doesn't work out, we have the same issues as before, we have to terminate and pay those additional benefits.
Okay, so could we, I mean, basically then it's not really renewing his contract and severing a relationship, it's not renewing the contract, and tell me, make sure I'm not putting words in your mouth, but not renewing the contract, but then renegotiating a new contract?
Not renewing an annual contract and renegotiating a contract.
Yeah.
That works.
Or in
Does that
favor
work
of
for
a
you,
month-to-month.
Well, I mean, I think it really depends on Jamie. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the motion would be,
Well, that's right.
yeah,
You don't
that
wanna-
you all are not renewing, and then direct the mayor to sign a document that basically provides him written notice that you are not renewing. But then I guess direct me to sit down with Jamie to see, you know, based on your discussions, to see if an agreement can be worked out, you know, going forward after October 1.
Like he said,
Like he said, all right.
there's always a 60-day exit clause. built in, so that's always there.
All right, so you want to take a vote?
Any more discussion? No. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And motion carries.
All right.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. We'll see you next month. Meeting adjourned.